Senator Rhiannon.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. The call, Save Our Steelworks, is resonating around the Illawarra, and today Save Our Steelworks resonates in this parliament. Members of the South Coast Labor Council, the Illawarra branch of the Australian Workers Union and other unionists have travelled to Canberra to speak to MPs about the future of the Illawarra and the future of the steel industry. Action is needed by the New South Wales and federal governments. Steelmaking is vital for the Illawarra and critical to the economy of the whole country. This is a hot issue, as the rumours of possible closure of the BlueScope Steelworks are swirling around Wollongong, swirling around Port Kembla. The threat to the steel industry and to thousands of jobs in this area is real unless governments take action. The Abbott government needs to engage with this issue urgently. It needs to undertake this work, as firstly, it's so critical. Jobs are on the line, and we know that the steel industry plays a critical role in the overall economy. And when you come back to the individuals and the importance of jobs, it therefore is very critical to people's well-being. The Steel Future Plan of the union movement that a number of unionists are putting forward to MPs in this parliament today has great merit. It provides real solutions to challenges that the Port Kembla steel industry is facing. The need for this plan is shown by a recent study undertaken by the University of Wollongong. This study was commissioned by the Australian Workers Union Port Kembla branch and examined the possible complete shutdown of steel production and the direct and indirect job losses. It was very disturbing, the findings. The study found a complete shutdown of the plant would result in an estimated $3.3 billion loss to gross regional product. That actually comes in at about 1/5 of the total gross regional product for the Illawarra, which stands at about $15.5 billion. Clearly, this should be a top priority to all governments, from New South Wales to the federal government, and it's a real credit that unionists have come here today because of the failure of the New South Wales and federal coalition governments to engage constructively with this issue. Approximately 10,000 jobs are at stake. They could be lost. This would be across the Illawarra. And already there is a serious unemployment level in the Illawarra, running at about 8.3%. And then when you look at youth unemployment, it's much more serious. Young unemployed people aged between 15 to 24 years in the Illawarra is at 20.5%. Now, as we know, because of the way these figures are calculated, that does not capture people on part-time work. So if we then look at the figures for young people aged 15 to 24 years who are actively looking for full-time work, we see the figures are very alarming. In Wollongong alone, the unemployment rate for these young people is 25.3%. A quarter of young people in that region want full-time work, and the jobs are not there for them. And the increase in the number of unemployed, if the steelworks close, will clearly be enormous. This is so serious, it deserves the urgent attention of the people, the decision-makers in this place. The University of Wollongong study really is a wake-up call for community leaders, for all levels of government, and indeed, therefore, all MPs and for Illawarra businesses as well. And on the issue with Illawarra businesses, I have to say it was disappointing and concerning, the response from the Illawarra Business Chamber. Their CEO stated, and I quote, she called on the community to remain calm. They were her words, community to remain calm. And she then goes on to assert that the research undertaken by the University of Wollongong was, in fact, overstated, according to her. Now, Arthur Rorris, Secretary of the South Coast Labor Council, really put this into perspective, because at a time when the steelworks could close, how irresponsible that the Illawarra Business Chamber takes that approach, rather than the constructive leadership role that they clearly should be displaying and working with all the stakeholders here. And Arthur Rorris said, shooting the messenger is not helpful at the moment. And I hope that that is indeed a reminder to the Illawarra Business Chamber of the role they should be playing here. And I do urge that this business chamber works with the unions and the community, as well as their own members, on this very big challenge that this area is facing. Clearly, there is a threat of closures. You don't have to go far in the Illawarra to get a sense of how serious this is. You just have to read some of the comments from BlueScope Steel to understand the urgency here and to appreciate why the concerns are so real. I do urge the Illawarra Business Chamber to constructively engage with the union plan. The unemployment levels are already so high. Surely a business chamber and the local MPs, right up from the state government to the federal government, should be addressing this issue. So, as I said, it's not just an Illawarra issue, it's a state and federal issue. And just a little bit of information about it to put it in context. New South Wales' only raw steel making facility, this BlueScope Steel, which was formerly BHP, is at risk of closure because of competition from imports and weak export prices. So that's why it's a federal issue. That's why these unionists are in the building today. The unions lobbying here are calling for government procurement regulations to require that 50% of the raw steel content in all state-funded infrastructure projects be sourced from an Australian blast furnace. That's what we're asking the businesses and all governments and the opposition to engage with. Similar government purchasing policies in Canada and the US have secured steelmaking in those countries. Again, we've seen that this plan can work. Let's get behind it. And clearly it would be a wise investment to use such a plan, because it would provide a massive investment, not just in economic terms, but in social, the social returns that would come. Because if so many thousands of people end up without work, the tragedy that would be for those individuals, but also the burden in terms of the additional economic payments that would need to be made by the government and needs to be considered. The additional costs to government for infrastructure would be substantially less than the economic, social and human costs of the unemployment, and we really need to ponder that message very closely. The proposed security of the market would not be a free gift to BlueScope or its shareholders. So just saying, oh, that's a form of subsidies, we should go down that track, is again avoiding engaging in what is a very constructive plan. The argument is real that for significant requirements to be imposed on the mill, including moving towards zero-emission steel manufacturing when the technology becomes commercially available, all those aspects to clean up the steel industry while retaining a steel industry, they can go hand in hand together. So this is the current state of affairs that's in Wollongong at the moment. You can imagine the enormous pressure it's putting on local people. Paul Kembler has been producing steel for 28 years. You meet so many families where generation after generation have gained work there. They've gained dignity, they've learnt so much, they've become skilled workers and valued members of their local communities. To allow this, to not engage with the prospects of the steel industry closing and to work to avert that would be highly irresponsible for any political party. We clearly have a responsibility to ensure that there's not large-scale job losses in that area. I've noted that BlueScope Steel is refraining from saying what its plans are, but some of its statements do add to people's concern. To quote, they've said costs of manufacturing steel are too high, and seeking a game-changing approach that will significantly reduce costs. Now, that can be read as that they're preparing for large-scale job losses. It can be read that they are out there to bleed the workforce so that there will be a rundown in the conditions of the workers at that plant. Now, the government can go down one road and drive down working conditions even further. We've seen so often that is the path that this government takes. Or it can engage constructively with the unions, the communities in the Illawarra, to ensure that the manufacturing of steel that started in 1928
Senator Rhiannon,
can
your
continue.
time has elapsed.
Thank you.